Welcome to another sewing project. You see here some linen fabrics which I bought during our holiday in the city of Leipzig in Germany. So here you see the walkthrough where I bought the fabrics in a store at the very end of this walkthrough. And this is 100% linen. So it's a very comfortable fabric to work with. I love it. Yeah, I decided to sew a wrap top from these fabrics. Now here you can see a mock-up of the finished wrap blouse. I used an old tablecloth as I didn't dare to sew the actual fabric yet. And also to recognize any weaknesses in the fit so that I could improve them on the second attempt. Even though I would have made a few more changes now that it is finished. I try to make it match to the skirt, which you see here underneath, and to make it as an ensemble. Now, most of the seams I'm showing you here are French seams, so also the inside of the garment looks very neat and nice. I got the pattern from a website that you can find in my description below. The download was free and I attached the PDF pages together to cut out the individual pieces, as you see here. Here is the bodice front, and what I did not, oh yeah, on here you can see, actually I cut off this piece, which in the original pattern is attached. And here you can see the bust dart, which I actually now find that it's way too small in length. And also I made a second piece of it because I lowered the bust for about 1.5 centimeters. So I adjusted the bust here. And here I cut out the pieces which are going to be the ties. I make it in different colors, as you have already seen. I've chosen black as the main fabric of the wrap top because I like the color. And you see me using here bar sew. I got this tip from a vlogger called Catherine Sews. So I can highly recommend her channel as she makes very good sewing tutorials. So here I mark the bust point and the rest. Here I will cut off the black fabric and attach the other ones. First I use a red one, a yellow fabric, and on the other side I'm going to choose a red or green one. Now this whole process is going to be a lot of piecing together, and in the end it's going to be a very, very long piece of clothing. So here I'm going to attach the black fabric to the yellow one, sewing it together there, and now I'm going to cut out the red fabric and attaching it also to the other part. And here I cut the narrow ties at the far end of the blouse. So you do it on fold. So it would actually be more convenient to hem the individual pieces instead of hemming a very long piece in a single pass, as handling so much fabric and weight is rather inconvenient, as I have found out. Otherwise you would have to leave the seams open at the edges and where they meet, and that would not save any work. That would actually complicate the whole thing. Now I cut out the interfacing for the collar, as the shoulders and armholes are sewn using a French seam. The collar interfacing is a particular challenge. If my video is not precise enough for you, I will link a tutorial below where you can watch this special technique. Yeah, and here I'm piecing together the green fabric to the black one and the red one to the green one. As the following scenes are self-explanatory, I want to come back to the bust dart. In my opinion, it's not long enough, and it ends long before it reaches the bust. So I had already considered whether the dart could be omitted altogether, as the top itself is generously cut, but I doubt whether that would be a good solution. So I would think that the dart would have to be extended inwards by a few centimeters. This is despite the fact that you wrap the blouse quite tightly. Oh, and I did not make French seams here. I decided not doing them. I zigzagged the edges and then I folded them under, which you can see here in short when I'm going to press the seams open, like here. And now the raw edges are going to be folded under. And I'm not even sure if I finished the seams, but just left them like that. I think I still have to do that, even though I declared the piece finished. So here you see them from the front, and now I'm cutting off the overlay. Sorry, this is out of focus. Sometimes it's not easy to place the camera in the best place. Here I'm sewing the bust dart, and in my mock-up I did it wrong. I pressed the bust dart upside down, or I pressed it in the wrong direction. So you have to press the bust dart downwards, and I pressed it upwards in my mock-up. So it's good to make a mock-up so you can see all your mistakes and don't have to do them in the original fabric. Unfortunately, I don't have a tailor's hem, so sometimes I really wish I would have already made one, because actually they're not so difficult to make, aren't they? Here, this is now going to be the very long piece of the front opening, and in order to help myself to make a crease, I first make a stay stitch, also to prevent it from stretching. So that's a very sensible thing to do. And here I'm telling you to stay stitch also the armhole. The stay stitch is finished here. and I'm going to press it. So you fold the edge, and then you fold it again, and then you sew it into place to get a very nice and neat outer edge of your garment. Cutting off the corners, so it's going to be easier to fold where the seam is. Otherwise you would have too much bulk. I've already pressed under the edges of the rest, and I'm done with the stay stitches all together at the armholes and at this very long part here, and I'm going to press them now. It's actually so much easier to follow the stay stitch instead of eyeballing how much centimeters you have to make the crease. And also it's kind of a stupid but very satisfying work, pressing all the way up. Since the following section is going to be self-explanatory, I'm going to show you some pictures from thrift stores I visited throughout the last year. These pictures I all took in the city of Hamburg, and also I'm going to show you some shots from our holiday in Denmark this year, which you can see here. Alright, now I'm done with pressing under the edges, and it's ready to being sewn under the machine. That's what you see me doing here. I'm stitching the front bodice part where the opening is, and here I pull it off because I need a different color of thread. So there is all black, and then comes the green, and I have to switch colors. Actually, I regret that I did only switch the top thread, but not the one on the bottom. So it's going to be seen from the inside that there is a black thread. But alright, you cannot see that on the outer shell, so that's not a problem, but it bothers me a bit. Now, as I sew the edge on the right side, that is from the top, I have to feel with one finger where the end of the bottom fold runs, so that I also catch this part and don't miss it. It can be sometimes a bit tricky. Yeah, a lot of sewing has already happened before the two front bodice pieces are finally prepared to be attached to the back of the bodice. Yeah, that took quite some time. I have underestimated how long it's going to take me to be done with the two front pieces. And I was actually not very pleased with the color combination, and so I decided to wrap it, the green and black and red part, to wrap it on top of the yellow one. Yeah, looking forward finally to put back and front together by the shoulder seams, and that's what I'm doing here. This is a particularly complicated process because the shoulders are going to be French seamed, and in order to do that you have to place left sides facing each other, that you're going to see. And also one part is a little bit bigger than the other one. Hopefully I'm going to show it. Yes, here you can see it. It overlaps a bit. Now it's important to cut off the seam allowance, about half of it, or about 2 to 3 millimeters. And keep in mind, what you're seeing here is the right side of the fabric. So this is the right side, and you have to make a little snip until you reach the stitching line. Then you're going to turn it over to the left side of the garment. Give it a good press and then stitch it close. Here I have already stitched it about 6 to 7 or 5 millimeters. And what you see me doing here is attaching the facing. Here I pivot and sew it back on. And for some reason the facing stretched, so I cut it on the fold. But then when I tried to attach it, I realized that it was way too big, so I had to cut it in half and make it smaller to fit into the neck. So in here I'm reaching the point where I have to pivot again and then stitching on the rest of the facing. And I stop where it is reaching the already existing stitching line and making sure that I'm in line with it. Now I'm going to turn it inside so that the right side of the facing is going to show from the inside of the garment. And in order to keep it inside, it's always good to understitch it, and that's what I'm gonna do in a few seconds. To do the understitching correctly, you must place the seam allowance to the right side and sew on top of it. So make sure that you only sew about 1 millimeter away from the previous seam. By placing the seam allowance under your fingers to the right, the facing will automatically fold inwards afterwards. And to help it even a bit more, you see that I'm always stretching out the fabric so that I can see the seam and orient myself towards it. All right, now I'm done with the neck and the shoulders, and all I've got to do is now to sew on the sleeves. Yeah, I hope that you can see everything. It's always a bit hard to watch it when the fabric is black. So yeah, maybe you can see all what I try to explain to you. Okay, finally I arrived to attach the sleeves to the bodice. And what you saw here, that is the letters left and also B and F, it's because of the different curves for the front and the back sleeve. It gives me an orientation how to place it into the armhole, and that's what I'm going to do here. See me. So I was looking if this was the right sleeve, and then I realized it was not, because there is the bodice front and that is the back of the sleeve. So I have to take the other one. Now there are different methods to attach the sleeve to the armhole, and as you see here, I did not close my sleeve seam because I find it easier to fasten the sleeve when all side seams are still open. So you can follow me here. First I fasten the back end with a needle, and then I'm going to put a needle on the front end, and that gives me the opportunity to see where I have huge gaps, where a lot of ease is built in. And I have put gathering stitches already into the sleeve where my notches are, so there. And I match the notches. You see me here pulling on the gathering thread. And during fastening the sleeve, I realized that I do not only have very much ease where the cap is, but also there was a lot of ease down to the armhole, and that was not the intention. I don't know, maybe I did something wrong because when I first cut out the patterns, I was going down on one size at the side seam, and that's maybe the reason why my sleeve got bigger, because I did not switch the size on my sleeve. So here I ran into a problem, which I will solve by snipping into the part which needs to stretch. And you're going to see me doing it here later on. Oh, yeah, I'm doing it right now. You see me snipping into the seam allowance. So that is going to give stretch to the fabric, so that then the edges match better. Yeah, that was a bit fiddling around, and it took me a bit of a headache to make it all fit, and I must say sleeves are not my favorite part. Find them really difficult. And no matter which method I already tried out, closing the side seam of the sleeve or letting it open, I find both methods quite complicated, but you know, maybe more practice is going to help me in the future. Yeah, you see me pulling on the gathering thread to make it fit. And I have voluntarily not cut the video here, so that if you're a beginner, you can see what mistakes you can run into and how to overcome them without having to completely recut a part. So, because as we all know, fabrics are valuable. Now, after the tedious pinning together, now comes the tedious sewing together. I'm using French seams again, and I had to force myself to remind me that I have to put left sides together. And I leave the needles in the fabric because I don't want to risk to let it slip, so it gives me a bit more security in doing the seam correctly, even though it's always a bit of a thrill for the machine needle because it could break, but you know, so far I was lucky that it didn't. And now I'm cutting the seam allowance again into half, and then I'm going to turn it over like you saw me doing it in the shoulder seams. And first, when or after you have cut it, then you must give it a good press. Be careful to really cut it short, because if it is not cut short enough, you may run into the problem that when you turn it around and you sew it from the other side, that a little bit of the seam allowance sticks out, and that's nothing what you want to be seen from the right side of the garment. And you see there are little puckers, and I'm doing my best to iron them out. Linen is kind of forgiving, and when you stretch it under the iron, most of the puckers will be flattened. I just flipped the bodice to the inside, so you see me now working on the inside, and I'm wetting my finger to finger press the seam in order to put needles into it, and this is going to help me to sew a nice and neat edge. Okay, here you can see the inside of the wrap blouse quite well, the inside of the collar and the inside of the shoulder seams, all nice and clean. I actually don't like open seam allowances at all, especially when there are cuts around the armhole, as they tend to fray over time due to washing and eventually become very messy, so that's why I don't like them. But also I do not like very much to sew French seams, so I have sometimes to decide what I dislike most. As you can see, there are some puckers, and then this is going to be ironed out. It's a bit of a tedious work, but in the end I will succeed to iron out all the puckers which are disturbing. Or let's say almost all of them. In order to do so, I'm using a lot of steam and press really hard to flatten the fabric. Here again, I wish I would have a tailor's hem, so it is easier to use a three-dimensional body to pull a three-dimensional fabric onto it and then to iron it. So I think I will make one in the near future. Now everything is put together. except the side seams and the hem. Yeah, looking forward to finally finish this sewing project. I think it was a success, and I hope you're going to like it too. So here I'm showing you that the side seams still are open, as well as the sleeve seam. And I have to take care to leave out a gap where the strap is going to be put through. Now, to give you a number, how much hem to make in total there is, I measured 3 meters and 24 centimeters, so that's going to be a really wide piece to hem. But, you know, since it's just folding the very edge and then folding under, that's not much of a big deal. Yeah, professionals call it a rolled hem, and that's what I'm gonna do, and then I'm finally finished. Yay!